So, in California schools, there's this really powerful tool called an emergency removal. It's supposed to be all about keeping everyone safe, right? But what happens when that tool gets, well, misused? Today, we're going to dig into how this safety measure can turn into a loophole for kicking students out without a fair shake, and, most importantly, what you can do to fight back. Okay, I want you to imagine this. You're a 16-year-old kid. For months, you've been telling your school about racial harassment you're facing. On top of that, you have an anxiety disorder and a 504 plan. That's one of those formal plans schools make to give students with disabilities some extra support. You're just at your breaking point. You turn to a friend and you say this: I can't keep dealing with this. Something's gotta give. So, how should a school hear that statement? Is that a cry for help from a student who's been bullied relentlessly, or is it somehow an immediate threat to the entire school's safety? Well, the school made its choice, and boy, was it a fast one. Get this, within just 30 minutes of him saying that, a teacher reported it to the principal. And without asking him a single question, security was called to remove him from campus. The reason they gave? Just a vague emergency. I mean, can you imagine getting that phone call as a parent? Your son's been kicked out for making threatening statements, but they won't tell you what he said. He can't come back until they finish an investigation, but they won't give you a timeline. It's basically an indefinite suspension based on a secret accusation. It's just unbelievable. That whole situation just feels wrong, right? And that's because it is wrong. It actually violates the real rules that are supposed to control these kinds of situations. So let's take a minute and break down what the law in California actually says. The key word here, and it's everything, under the California Education Code is immediate. I'm going to say it again, immediate. This power isn't for some potential risk in the future or because an administrator has a vague, uneasy feeling. It is for a real, happening right now danger that requires someone to be removed instantly. Think active violence or someone having a weapon on campus. And this slide really lays it all out. A legitimate emergency is objective, it's concrete. You see a weapon, you see a fight. A pretextual, or let's be real, a fake emergency is often totally subjective. It's based on an administrator's fear, a misinterpretation, or punishing a kid for a vague statement, exactly like what happened in our story. And here is the absolute crucial point. Even in a real legitimate emergency, a student's constitutional rights do not just vanish into thin air. A huge Supreme Court case called Goss v. Lopez made it clear that every student gets due process. That means the school has to tell them exactly what they're accused of, they have to get a chance to tell their side of the story, and they have to get a proper hearing, fast. So let's circle back to our student's story. How did the school's actions measure up against these actual legal rules? Well, as you're about to see, they didn't just bend the rules. They completely ignored them. This was a total denial of his rights. This timeline says it all. Day 1, he's removed, with zero written explanation. For the next 5 school days, his mom is calling and just gets radio silence. No hearing, no new information, nothing. It's not until day 8, when a lawyer has to send a formal legal demand, that the school is finally forced to answer for what they did. And when the case finally got in front of a judge for an emergency order, the ruling was incredibly fast and crystal clear. The judge saw right through the school's excuse, saying that an administrator's personal feeling of fear is simply not a good enough reason to strip a student of their constitutional rights. The student was ordered back to school immediately. Now, you might be thinking this was just a one-off mistake, one school getting it really wrong. But the source material for this story shows that this student's experience is part of a much larger, much more troubling pattern of discrimination. Let this number sink in for a second. According to the data cited in the case, Black students in California are hit with emergency removals at a rate 5 times higher than their white classmates. Not 2 times, not 3 times, 5 times higher. And this comparison, which was uncovered during the legal case, is absolutely staggering. Our student, who is Black, says something's gotta give after months of being harassed, and he's immediately removed as a threat. In the very same month, a white student posts a message about bringing an assault rifle to school, and the outcome? Counseling. It's a shocking look at how the idea of danger is so often seen through a biased lens. So after hearing all that, the big question is, what can a parent do when they're facing this kind of situation? How do you fight back against this kind of unfair overreach? Well, the source material actually provides a really clear step-by-step game plan. Let's walk through it. Think of this as your roadmap. Step 1, within 24 hours, you demand specifics in writing. This forces them to go on the record and creates a paper trail. Step 2, after 3 days, you challenge the duration. An emergency can't last forever. Step 3 is for students with an IEP or 504 plan. You demand something called a manifestation determination. It's a formal meeting to figure out if the student's behavior was actually caused by their disability. And then steps 4 and 5 are about escalating, using public records to look for patterns of discrimination, and then taking legal action to force the school to do the right thing. This next point is so important it completely flips the school's logic on its head. And it's probably the single most important thing to remember. An emergency doesn't give the school a free pass to ignore students' rights. Legally, it actually requires them to provide that due process, the notice and the hearing, even faster than usual. And for students with disabilities, the ones with an IEP or a 504 plan that gives them specialized support, there's a whole other powerful layer of protection. Under federal law, any removal, even if they call it an emergency, counts as a day of discipline. And if those days start to add up to more than 10 in a school year, it automatically triggers that manifestation determination hearing we just talked about, where they have to check if the behavior was actually a result of the student's disability. So we're left with this question. The line between protecting students and just unlawfully excluding them can be really, really thin. And as we've seen, it's often blurred by subjective fear and, frankly, bias. Knowing the rules, demanding your rights, and holding schools accountable is really the only way we can make sure school safety is a shield for all students, not a sword used against a select few.